Welcome to another week of Wake Up Call. It is episode number 20. Woo! So we are still here together, and I hope to bring you many, many more. The past few weeks I've done on my solo episodes, I have covered one topic, and I think I tend to like that better. I think you guys kind of do too. Because when you jump around too much, it can be a little all over the place. But for whatever reason, that's what I want to do this week. And that's what I was doing in the first few episodes. And a few things caught my attention that I would like to share with you. So that's what we're doing. To answer one of the questions from last week, it was Mona, and she said that she has a similar background to Gray, who I interviewed last week, and she wants to connect. Absolutely, reach out to me on X. If you're on X, that's where I'm on social media maybe 45 minutes a day, and that's where I tend to look at night when the kids are asleep. That's where you can get in touch with me the fastest. If you don't have X, you can reach out to me on Instagram, but I'm not really on Instagram very much. But yeah, reach out to me. I'd love to talk. And Kevin mentioned that he looks forward to the episodes and that it's hard to predict what next week's discussion will include, and I appreciate that. I'm very predictable in certain ways, and I'm very unpredictable in others. I'm very predictable when it comes to like reacting to certain situations or events, but creatively, I would say that I'm very hard to predict, so I appreciate you noticing that, because I really do try to mix it up and keep everybody interested, basically. That's the truth. So what we're going to start this episode off with is, in the alternative media community, I notice that we mention false prophets, gatekeepers, controlled opposition, but we don't really talk about that in the spiritual community. And I'm not going to be claiming anyone's a fraud when I cover this, but in my spiritual journey, I've learned that there is a sector that alarms me a little bit. When I first started waking up, not fully waking up, but the beginning of waking up, it was when I first was exposed to the Zeitgeist documentary about 9/11. And I think I was in my early 20s, like 21 or 22 when I watched that. And I was like, oh yeah, shit, this was definitely an inside job. And then I got into like The Secret and Abraham Hicks and manifestation, and it all served me very well. It had its purpose. But being further along on my journey now, I am worried about channeling. I'm worried about people who channel, because I don't see anything wrong with raising your vibration and having otherworldly experiences or psychic experiences, where I've talked about telepathy and telekinesis and all of these sixth sensibilities. But the one thing that worries me is channeling is now going very mainstream. And to put it bluntly, really after understanding channeling very well, I think that channeling is entity possession. And I think that this is a discussion that needs to be had within the alternative media community that leans more spiritual, regardless of whatever your religion is or your belief in God or whatever. If you consider yourself a spiritual person, at some point you probably have listened to channelers. And Abraham Hicks was a big one for me. And I'm not saying that channelers are phonies or frauds or that they're 100% channeling demons. But what I believe, and again, this is all opinion, and I'm telling this to you as a warning because I really do see channeling becoming mainstream. You're allowing another entity to come into your body. I don't have a problem with people who have made contact with other beings. But when you allow something to enter your vessel, I think it's dangerous. The main reason I think it's dangerous is they say when you die and you go into the astral, you're reunited with friends or family that might not be your friends or family. They might be another entity pretending to be that person. Well, channelers are accessing the astral. So when they say that they're channeling Abraham or Bashar or the Pleiadians or whatever, are they really? Maybe they are, but maybe they're not. And as we raise our vibration, it's possible that we're going to have contact with other things. Let's just say, I'm going to keep it very general. And I just want to say to you, I think channeling is sort of like a Ouija board. And once you open that door, there might be no closing it. Whereas if you come into contact with another being, whatever it is, but you are yourself, you create a barrier. And that's where I think some of this new age stuff, like we still have to be aware and still stay grounded in the 3D in certain ways. And it's not talked about enough. So spiritual half truths, or mostly truth but part untrue, is a lot harder to discern than political half truths, because political half truths, you can find the hard hitting facts, where this, what I'm talking about, can get a little gray. So in my process of realizing like channeling is one aspect of spirituality that I don't necessarily agree with completely, I wanted to see who else thought that way, like who else felt that way. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the work of Elena Dannon, I believe is her name. She's an extraterrestrial contactee, and she had this on her website. I couldn't find a video of her talking about it, but she worded this so perfectly that I have to read it to you. And it's on the dangers of channeling and quantum hypnosis. So channeling means literally becoming a channel for non-incarnated entities to speak through us. If it were a communication with physical persons, even incarnated in higher densities, it would be called telepathy, which I've talked about. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with that. And not channeling, because in telepathy, there is no possession at all. Only communication via thought or heart connection, such as with our soul families. Channeling, on the other hand, allows for contact with non-incarnated entities that temporarily express themselves through us, using a partial physical possession that involves the top of the head and the throat, and sometimes the shoulders, and if the possession is anchored deeper, the torso with the arms and hands. And you see this in channelers, where like the thing enters their body. And I've recently watched a video with, I've been kind of studying, I've been familiar with Bashar's work for a very long time, but he basically says that nothing's entering him, that he is reaching the same frequency. Well, Daryl Anka is reaching the same frequency as Bashar, and then they're resonating on the same level, and then Bashar speaks through him. But you can physically see something enters him. If it's true, if he's legit, something enters him. Before it became a trend, channeling had another name, spiritism. I remember she said she remembers stupidly experimenting with the Ouija board, and it's that same thing that I said. Once the door is open, like it's hard to close. And she learned that these practices tear a hole in the fabric of dimensions, and anything, absolutely anything, can come through. Again, what I said before of like, they say on the other side, you meet family members that might not be your family members. It's another entity pretending to be that person to trick you. Well, don't you think that if you're tapping into the astral, that can still happen through channeling? You could say, oh, I'm channeling source, or I'm channeling this entity. It could be something else, and they could be giving you 95% of the truth. All great when it comes to vibration and manifestation, but then there's like one thing that's a little off, or maybe they're being general about something that needs to be more specific. Because if they stay too general for an audience that is increasing their vibration and awareness, then what happens sometimes is you get stuck in a loop of being addicted to listening to these people. Again, the reason I want to talk about this is because we're talking about the warning signs with these alternative mainstream media personalities, but we're not talking enough about these spiritual things in the alternative that need to be entered with extreme precaution. So Elena says this is where free will comes into play, with allowing them in, like through the Ouija board. These entities would never be able to reach you unless you give them permission. It's different if you come into contact with one and you're communicating with them. Create the barrier. But you have to give them permission to enter you, and that's what channeling is. And this is where I think we need to be warning. We need to be warning people, because now I'm seeing really everyday people who are very new to spirituality getting excited about these channelers because it's giving them hope. And it served me at one point too. I'm not saying that it's all bad, but you have to realize what this is too, and use your own discernment. So she says, Elena says, connecting with our soul family through personal meditation is a wonderful and safe experience, but calling upon an entity that is not of your soul family using an external method and sometimes tools is extremely dangerous. When you drop your defenses to an open window into the fabric of reality, whoever you call, The first entities to respond are the lower astral vampire entities that are hunting for human life force and soul essence. And wouldn't that make sense? Because it tends to be when people are seeking out this information, they tend to be in a place of despair and lack 99% of the time. They're learning about vibration, which is a good thing, but generally they're not in a they go in and out, which is normal, we all do, but they're looking for answers, and they get caught in this trap of searching outside of themselves. Because you give them access to your psyche, your thoughts, and your body, they will impersonate anyone you wish to speak to. Like I said, have you ever had a dream where it's your husband or wife or mom or brother or son or daughter or best friend or whatever, and it's sort of that person, but it's sort of not? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's sort of not sometimes. Sometimes it feels really like it really is that person, but other times it doesn't. And that's what's going on here with channeling, and you really have no way of knowing. They will pretend to be your deceased grandfather, your star lover, an angel, Ashtar, Jesus, etc. When Jesus or an angel wants to connect with you, they will make the first move. It just gave me a chill. They will make the first move without any tool and will never take possession of your voice or your body. And it's true, they won't. They might give you insight, and you might see visions, or you might hear something or whatever, but they're not going to enter you. You will experience a powerful energy of love and know for sure without any doubt who you are dealing with. The lower astral entities will keep you addicted to regular contact. These contacts will become a drug, a need, and these etheric leeches will feed on your energy. And then she goes into some quantum hypnosis things about personal sessions that she had. And she ends it by saying, your story is your story, and no one else has any rights to it. It's yours, it's sacred, never let anyone use it for financial gain in any way. To me, a true therapist is the sage who holds space with care and love, guides you with humility, and asks for nothing in return except a fee to honor their work, effort, and time. True. She's been one that I've been into lately, along with Alex Collier, who it was in Persona Non Grata. There was a little clip of Alex Collier in there, who's also a contactee, an Andromedan contactee. And I reached out to his people to ask for an interview. I'd love to talk to Elena too, but yeah, I'm realizing in the spiritual community and the new age stuff, like the channeling thing is a dangerous place. And one of I've read channelers books. My favorite channeler, I still, like, I don't think that they're bad people. I don't think Abraham Hicks is bad. I don't think Bashar is necessarily bad. He seems to be the most general, which makes me question. The more general they are, the more I question. My favorite one has been Barbara Marciniak, because I really like her when she's not channeling, when she's talking about the Pleiadians and stuff. And her books are really good, and I've learned a lot from her. And she gets specific. If you listen to her audio recordings, I don't know if you've ever gone to any of her seminars or workshops or whatever they call them, but she gets really specific, and she's not afraid to do that, whereas a lot of channelers purposely stay vague and broad, which is a red flag to me. With that being said, even though I really like Barbara Marciniak, she's still channeling, and who knows what she's channeling? She says it's the Pleiadians. Who the hell knows who knows? It was a few years ago. I wanted to go to an Abraham Hicks workshop, and I felt like I outgrew that, but I still wanted to go. And even though the energy of the people there was good, like I felt like everybody was very good-hearted there. It did have a feeling of like a cult, not a cult, where they're looking at Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks, and like she's a god and knows the answers to everything. I don't care who the hell you're channeling. I don't care who the hell you are. You don't have the answers to everything. And that's coming from me, who I greatly look up to David Icke. Like, it's okay to look up to people, but to assume that they have the answers to everything and that they are better than you, no. We are all humans on the human journey, seeking, and the answers are always from within. You will come across things when you need them, but then you look back sometimes and you're like, I've outgrown that, or that served its purpose when it did. It's important to not get culty, guys. Uh, I, I I don't think this audience is. I think that's why it's a small audience. Um, because people are looking for answers right now. There is a massive shift, but we have to be wise. And that's why I want to bring this up. Like we talk about the controlled opposition in politics and when it comes to world affairs, but we don't talk about it when it comes to spirituality. And again, I'm not saying these channelers are controlled opposition. I'm just saying that they may have good intentions, but they may not even really know what they're tapping into. Um, Channeling your higher self is the only safe method. So, Elena, who I've read from her website, she says that she doesn't believe in downloads, that's not a thing. Whereas I believe in downloads, but I believe that it's coming from your higher self. It's just you connecting with your higher self, getting closer to the creator or source, but to act like it is an entity, or even I don't even directly think that it's coming from source. I think it's me tapping into my higher self, getting closer to that. Because I also think it's important to have humility in this process. And um and yeah. So the reason I have brought all of this up today is that Bashar had a new documentary come out like 4 or 5 months ago, and it keeps coming up on I'm not even on YouTube barely ever, except for things to put on for my 2.5-year-old. And all of these, I guess through my internet searches, all of these Bashar things are coming up. And yeah, he did a documentary 4 or 5 months ago, and says that it's a synchronization of frequencies that allow you to have the same thoughts at the same time. Again, but I see, like, if he's being genuine, something's entering his body. So my question for channelers is like, Why can't you make contact with whoever you're speaking with and then report back to us? I mean, I know it's not as exciting, and I know it's not as like, maybe you're not going to have as much of a cult following being like puppy dogs waiting for the answers. But say, like, that's why I'm starting to kind of, I have no proof of the alien contactees being 100% legitimate either, but they're not making people wait for all of the answers. They're just talking about their personal experiences um, and reporting back to us, which is a completely different thing. And why is nobody talking about this? Why is nobody saying, okay, great, even if Daryl Enka channels Bashar, why does he have to channel that entity in front of a group of people? Why can't he have a discussion or telepathy or whatever it is on the same wavelength and then say, this is what I was told, instead of having that entity enter the body? Even if he's saying they're on the same wavelength and frequency, I think it's very dangerous territory. And religious people, of course, say this, but they don't explain why. I'm trying to explain why it's dangerous and what to look out for. Like I said, Elena Dannon, Alex Collier, Michael Salla, they tend to come at it from a more specific, detailed 3D angle, and they don't come off as godlike or cult-like. Who knows? They could be making up everything that they're saying. I don't know. I don't have those answers. But there seems to be a little bit less of an agenda there. So I wanted to share my 2 cents about all of that. With that being said, it's time for my funny bones.
You want answers today?
Yes, and that's why I'm here.
What is your point of attraction?
I analyzed most of my negative experiences that I had, and I realized that most of the times, if not always, they were self-inflicted.
I am feeling a sense of self-doubt and unworthiness.
How do I shift the belief?
Is the left finally getting good at memeing? I think those JD Vance memes are fucking hilarious. So, what made me think of the JD Vance memes? I saw like 1 or 2 of them, and I kind of just had a sneaking suspicion, like, I think this is a thing. I think there's like a trend of these going around. Well, there is. And so I kept finding one after the next after the next. I'm like, oh my God, I have to include this week. But I saw a clip of JD Vance from, I think it was within the past week. And he is on Fox, and he says that he refers to Chinese people basically as peasants, talking about the economy. And from an economic standpoint, I'm not in complete disagreement with what he's saying, but for somebody who's trying to come off as the everyman and like this hillbilly from very rough background, whatever, you had a Freudian slip right there. Because if that were the case, if that were true, I'm not trying to be wokey woke analyze your every word, but I caught a Freudian slip. And if you're trying to be the everyman, you wouldn't call them peasants. Even commoner is like better than peasants. Are you kidding me? So let's watch that clip.
What has the globalist economy gotten the United States of America? And the answer is fundamentally it's based on two principles: incurring a huge amount of debt to buy things that other countries make for us. And to make it a little bit more crystal clear, we borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture.
Borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture.
That is not a recipe for economic prosperity. It's not a recipe for low prices, and it's not a recipe for good.
And it's not a recipe for being the everyman, JD. Thought that one was pretty funny. Moving on. Okay, so over the past, I have to talk, this is so like surface frivolous, but I have to talk about this. Over the years, there's been all those crazy videos of Britney Spears on the internet. Well, yes, it looks like she's a victim of MK Ultra from everything that she's been through, but these videos are really weird because her body parts change, specifically her teeth. They've changed multiple times, and it seems like people have completely forgotten that deepfakes are a thing. You know, we talked about that 4 or 5 years ago, and now we're going through this AI boom, and it seems like people forgot about the deepfake thing. And I am thoroughly convinced, you know, some people think she's a clone. I don't think that. I think that they're using a deepfake. So in this video, her voice sounds completely different. She sounds like she's trying to have like an English accent or something. I mean, there's a resonance that still sounds a little bit like her, but it also doesn't at the same time. And then her teeth are completely different. So I'm going to show you first a picture of her teeth that she's known to actually have had for years, and what her teeth look like in the video, and why is nobody talking about the deep fake stuff anymore? Like, that's completely out the window. It's got to be a deep fake. Let's see what you guys think.
Pinky nail. I haven't had nails since I was in like the 7th grade. I'm like freaking out. It's like really tiny, but still. It's like, hey, baby, can't believe it unless based on you. Yeah, so like really.
Different teeth, right? I mean, yeah. That's a weird one. That's a weird one. And I normally don't get involved in pop culture stuff, but I think during COVID there were a lot of things that came out that we forgot about, and deepfakes is one of them. So everything that we see at first glance, we cannot take literally, because they're good now and they're only going to get better. So Britney Spears has been one that I've been like, that's not her. God only knows if that's not her. God only knows where she is. I hope that she's okay, because it seems like she had definitely been through MK Ultra. I'm gonna blow through these next two pretty quick. I'm gonna show you a clip from Joe Rogan where he is talking about these Bazi boys. I think that's the way that you say it. In Afghani culture, there's this thing of like they're saying in every town that there's pedophilia going on, and it's very common. Well, what they're leaving out is that it's common amongst the Afghani elite, just like the American elite, just like European elite, just like Israeli elite, whatever. it's amongst the elitists. And I'm not saying that pedophilia doesn't exist outside of the elite, but this bachabazi boy stuff is mostly amongst rich elitist Afghanis. And this Joe Rogan clip makes it sound like it's just everyday Islamic people who do this in Afghanistan. And within every single society, there's going to be the people who are malicious and the people who are good. Just like within the Jewish community, we should be able to criticize Israel, criticize Mossad, criticize Zionism without saying we love Hitler. Because let's face it, if you do your research, Hitler was highly likely, a Rothschild himself, which would make a great episode, and I would love to do that soon. So maybe I will. But that's what I tend to believe. And all of these people who think that he was a good guy and a savior, like he was part of the agenda too. He was put in to dismantle Germany ultimately. And let's face it, the Nazis, even though they said they lost, they didn't. They infiltrated our CIA, NASA, so many institutions, and they didn't lose. So I wanted to show this clip from Rogan because I feel like this is generalizing what's going on in Afghanistan and has been going on for many, many years. I'm not saying that it's not happening. What I'm saying is he's failing to mention that this is a common practice amongst elitists, and they just so happen to do it out in the open, whereas a lot of other Western countries hide it. It's really a common theme throughout all governments, all religions, and that's what we need to focus on. So I actually think this Rogan clip is propaganda, and it's meant to make Americans hate Muslim people, just like a lot of things that are happening on social media are created to make us hate Jews. And we have to remember, yes, we can criticize any group of people that we want. We should practice our free speech, but we should also not practice hate and have our facts and see us as an equal human race, knowing that there are factions at the top that tend to be more corrupt. So this just seems like propaganda to me because it's not detailed and it's not clear. So let's see what you guys think.
Afghanistan is so that you can't even comprehend it until you're there. He goes, once you're there and you see it and you understand it, you become so cynical. You almost like, this culture is like unfixable. And he's like, most people just don't know that a place like that exists. That's so just down to its core. So he was talking about how these guys have these boys that they have as their harem.
The number 9 boy.
What's that?
That's what the Egyptian Special Forces called him, the number 9 boy. He's the boy that gets...
Why number 9?
I don't know. That's what the Egyptian Special Forces called. But every Afghanistan village had what do they call it? The Chogi boy or fucking
something like that. Yeah.
But basically the 12-year-old that gets...
And he was saying these guys have harems and they would parade them down the street to show they have the most boys.
I think a lot of things happening on social media are meant to make us all pinned against one another. The New Agers against the Christians against the New Agers, the Zionists against the Muslims, the Muslims against, like, it's all the Abrahamic religions pinned against one another, then all the spirituality, like, I don't consider myself a New Ager, but I know that religious people do. So when I try to explain my beliefs to a religious person. I kind of, depending on where they are in their consciousness level, I gauge where they are and I'm like, well, this is sort of, maybe you've heard of this, that, or the other thing, and then I kind of guide them from there because they can't fathom not being attached to a label. So I brought up Israel a bit, and I can't end this episode without talking about Tim Pool openly admitting, at least he is openly admitting, because a lot of the other people who went apparently have said nothing, but Tim Pool meeting privately with Netanyahu. Last night I saw a clip of him from Timcast, from his show, and he said that he was invited to meet with Netanyahu, and there were rules to not mention who else was at the meeting and no quoting anybody. Okay, these are supposed to be journalists, so you can't say who else was there and you can't say what was said, really. Well, that is a Chatham House rule, which is also operating under the royals in the UK. And how are we supposed to get an accurate story as to what happened there? We honestly, we can't. But it's notable that the Bilderberg Group also operates under the Chatham House rules. And it's the Royal Institute of International Affairs, commonly known as Chatham House, British think tank in London, England. Stated mission is to help governments and societies build a sustainably secure, prosperous, and just world. Yeah, right. So now we have mainstream alternative personalities freaking going and meeting with Netanyahu, and they can't really say what's been said. That is 10 times, I'm sorry, I think that's 10 times worse than Alex Jones shilling for Elon Musk. Like, this is even more pathetic. How much money is Tim Pool getting paid? Pool says he told them younger Americans, this is what he said. This is what he said in the meeting. He generally said. He says he told them that younger Americans are largely anti-Israel, and in 20 years, America will no longer support Israel. By then, the Greater Israel Project and New World Order will basically be established. That's what I mean, if we don't stop it, that's what's going to happen. So it won't matter. They don't care. They don't care if they're not going to have American support in 20 years. The world's going to be under a one world government. What the hell is it going to matter? And he said that Netanyahu meeting with these journalists he was clueless to our falling support. That is laughable. He knows exactly what is going on, and it's all being done strategically. But according to Jewish Insider, Tim Pool complained to Netanyahu about anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism in the quote-unquote pro-Trump podcasting space and suggested it was a Qatari op. Laugh my ass off, Tim. You've got to be freaking kidding me. No, it's likely that part of the quote-unquote anti-Semitic stuff is warranted, and it's not anti-Semitic. It's just calling a spade a spade. And then the other stuff that is genuinely hateful is being stoked. It's being stoked and provoked. And who do you think is genuinely behind that? You think the Qatari op is doing that? No, I would say it's more likely that it's our intelligence and Israeli intelligence that's doing that. But that's just me. Anyway, I thought that was mind-blowing. Like, anybody who still listens to Tim Pool, you've got to be freaking kidding me. It's a secret society in broad daylight, and he is telling you. So, that's what I have for this week. I know the first half of the episode, or more than that, was sort of on one thing, but the last few talking points. I felt like I couldn't not talk about them this week, and that's why I wanted to cover some additional ground. So, not sure if next week is going to be just me or I do have somebody tentatively lined up for an interview. We'll see, and I'll see you next week.
Last night I wasn't here. I got late word that I was invited to a private roundtable meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It was under what's called Chatham House rules. For those that are not familiar, this means that you cannot reveal anybody who attended, nor attribute anything to any one individual, as they can deny it, and they would. However, what I love about what the White House is currently doing, when you bring together a bunch of influencers and podcasters who don't know much about journalism culture, whatever you want to call it, not that we respect it tremendously, most people didn't know what Chatham House meant. So with all due respect, it's funny because they bring us into the Blair House, which is where Netanyahu was staying. And immediately people are walking around with their cameras, their phones up. They actually took our phones from us. And I legit thought they would maintain Chatham House rules, meaning you can't quote the prime minister, you can't quote his officials and the other people who were there, but you can report what was said generally. If you wanted an official quote on a specific matter, you would then ask an official once the meeting was wrapped, and they'd provide you the exact quote. Or they would just say outright, like, we ain't putting our quotes on that one.